Welcome back to the Grind, Sleep, Repeat podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about 3 tips to help increase your running performance.
Yeah, these are 3 things that are going to make a huge difference in your program and just your overall performance that you have on the run, but stacking that over time. If you can have better runs and you can just have better performance over time, that's going to lead to better progress. So these are 3 simple things that you can add and that you can implement into your own program that are just going to overall help you see better progress over the long term with your running performance.
Yeah, I think we've had some experience with this too, some things that have worked for us and some things that haven't worked for us. So, going by what we feel like we've perfected by now, we want to share with you guys so that you don't make the same mistakes that we have too in the past.
Yeah, when we first started hybrid training where we were lifting and running, we made plenty of mistakes. And I think everybody does. So learn from our mistakes, add these 3 things, and you're going to see awesome progress. You're just going to have really good performance and really good energy and consistent energy. I think that's the thing too is, every day is going to be a little different when you're training. Some days you're tired. Some days you're not motivated. Some days you're super motivated. You feel fresh. You feel good. But if you can have a consistent, reliable strategy that's going to help you have consistent output and consistent performance, it's going to help you really improve as a runner.
Yeah, and I think just hopping right into the first tip is fueling your body for your run. I think this is a huge one that we have previously made mistakes from in the past. And, if you're somebody who's listening and you think that you're fueling properly, rethink that again, because half the time you're probably not getting enough calories. Or if you're somebody who, thinks running on an empty stomach is more beneficial for you, I would reevaluate that as well. You're going to see such a difference if you fuel the right way and overload on carbs before a run. You're going to have so much more energy. You're going to feel so much better overall too.
Yeah, just what you're eating around before and throughout the day is going to have a huge impact on your run. It's going to have a huge impact on the workouts that you're doing today, the workouts that you're doing tomorrow. So fueling is such an important piece that I don't think we quite understood when we first started hybrid training. Obviously, we were strength training and, we knew how to fuel for that, but fueling for running is a little bit different. So let's dive into what we do. We can give different scenarios on, if it's a morning run, if it's an afternoon run, if it's an evening run, like what should I be doing? What food should I be eating? Or how much should I be eating to have enough energy to really have good performance on a run?
Yeah, so just to give you an example of typically what a day looks like for me if I'm running personally, we always have sessions in the morning. So unfortunately, we don't typically get to run in the morning unless it's on the weekends. But during the week, I will wake up and have a good, carb and protein loaded breakfast. What that typically looks like for me is oatmeal and some protein powder and some berries. And then I'll put almond butter on top of that. So it's a good high calorie, good protein heavy, carb heavy, and a little bit of fats in there too to keep me full and satiated for, that morning where I'm getting in sessions. And then before going into my run, I will fuel with a protein bar. I really like the Aloha protein bars. And I will also drink some carbohydrate source that's going to be a quick digesting carb that's going to get to my body quickly so that I have those carbs to get me through that longer run.
Yeah, and everybody's going to be very different. Like we said, maybe you run in the morning. We'll give you a scenario on what you can do there. For us, most of the time, like Alyssa mentioned, we're trainers here at the gym. I'm starting early, 5 in the morning. Alyssa, same thing. She's starting early in the morning. We don't have the opportunity to run. Otherwise, it would be we'd have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's just not realistic. So typically, most of the time, we're running in the afternoon if we do have a running workout. So our fueling strategy is a little bit different. But like Alyssa mentioned, you always want a whole food source, as long as it's not early morning. If you're running more afternoon or evening, you want a whole food source, maybe an hour to 2 hours out from when you're going for a run. That's going to be rich in carbs. It's going to be rich in protein, going to be moderate amounts of fat, just has enough calories to give your body the fuel that it needs to get through a workout. As the workout gets closer, maybe within the half hour to 1 hour out from that workout, you're utilizing faster digesting carbohydrates, whether that is in the form of a powdered carbohydrate, a liquid carbohydrate. something that's more fast acting that again is going to help you have those carbohydrates within your muscle, within your bloodstream that you're going to be able to utilize during that run, and making sure that you're hydrating with water throughout the day, especially before you run, especially if you're running outside and it's hot. But that can apply to anyone, whether it is an afternoon run, whether it's an evening run. You can't just expect to go for a run and just get through it on just grit and dedication and just pull it out of nowhere. You
And
have to
that's
have
part of it.
energy. Yeah, it's just like if you're running a car. You need gas in your tank to go. At some point, your car runs out of gas, you're not getting anywhere. So
Crash and burn.
it's the same thing with running. Now, if you are somebody that's running in the morning, you might want to structure this a little bit differently. You might have to play around with it. Like we'll go for a Sunday run. That's usually more of our longer run on Sundays that we'll run together, where we don't train on Sundays. That's our one day off of the week, and we'll go for a morning run with our family. And typically what we'll do for that, it's not super early, so it's not like a 4 or 5 a.m. run. So we'll wake up, we'll have a light breakfast, and then about 30 minutes out from the run, we'll start sipping on some sort of carbohydrate source and some water, and then we'll go for a run. But we never go on an empty stomach, because if you are, especially in the morning, your body hasn't had fuel for hours upon hours upon hours. And at some point, you're going to just run out of energy. Or you might not notice that you are running out of energy, and you don't realize how much better performance you could see if you're fueling your workouts properly. So main thing is carbohydrates. Again, everybody's going to be a little different. If you can't tolerate a lot of food before your workout, I would say that main food meal that maybe is a couple hours, maybe it's like 2 or 3 hours out from your run.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're somebody that you can get away with eating something and then run an hour later, and it doesn't have any issues.
Just depends on you.
It depends on you. You're going to have to play around with it. But the main thing is you do not want to eat nothing, go for a run, and run on an empty stomach most of the time. You can do it every once in a while. And if it's more of like a slow aerobic run, it's not the end of the world. But if you're really trying to make progress and have the most amount of energy possible, you need food, you need fuel, you need carbohydrates within the couple of hours that you're going to go for that run.
Yeah, and, on that Sunday morning run, like you mentioned, if we decide to go a little bit early because we have stuff going on in the afternoon or later on in the evening and we wanna get it done early in the morning, another tool that helps too is eating a carb-heavy dinner.
The
So
night before.
yeah,
Yep.
the night before. So, if you're gonna go for a run early in the morning and you wanna fuel up on those carbs the night before and then wake up in the morning, still have something to eat. Doesn't mean you can pass up on eating breakfast that morning because you had, like, a pasta dinner the night before. Still still fuel your body, but you can rely a little bit more on some of those carbs that you stored from dinner.
Yeah, it's a really good trick, especially for those people listening to this that are getting up really early in the morning. You might not have a lot of appetite, or you just don't have time to eat something. Like Alyssa mentioned, I would still eat something, whether it's some sort of fast digesting carbohydrate, maybe it's a protein bar and a banana or something very small that's going to
Simple
digest
sugar.
well. But that night before, load up on carbohydrates. I think a lot of people are really quick to say, like, oh, the dinner should be the lightest meal of the day. Listen, we're trying to focus on performance. And if you are training in a hybrid style where you're serious about building muscle, building strength, and you're training your ass off, you're going for runs where you're pushing the limits, don't worry about having a bigger dinner. As long as it's healthy, high quality food, as long as it's, maybe you normally have 200 grams of sweet potato, maybe you add an additional 100 grams of sweet potato, or maybe you have a half a cup of rice, maybe you have a cup of rice. It's nothing crazy. Like you don't have to make major adjustments and pound a bunch of carbohydrates. Just eat more the night before. You're going to notice a significant amount of increase in energy, and that's just going to lead to better progress long term. Imagine if you had extra gas in the tank every single time that you ran. Imagine how much further you could get, how much more progress you could make rather than always feeling like you're running on E. By that time that run is over, you're like, I'm smoked. I got nothing left. And that's just the start of my day. So for those people listening that are running in the morning, if you are running on an empty tank, you're running on an empty stomach, this is a really quick change that you can make. And for those people that are running in the afternoon and the evening, same thing. You need to line your food up accordingly if you're serious about making progress. If you don't care about making progress, then, don't listen to what we have to say. But if you're serious about it, structure your food and your diet and your hydration around your run, and you're going to see so much better progress than if you don't.
Yeah, and I just wanna mention too, if you're someone who's like, I can get my energy from a caffeine source, coffee, whatever it is," I would not advise that because, first of all, caffeine, as we know, can cause this high and then crash. But also, when we're going for these longer runs, we wanna make sure we're staying hydrated. We don't wanna start off by, not fueling our body with water. We wanna first wake up, have some water, not wake up, have a cup of coffee, run out the door, and literally go run on a cup of coffee.
Yeah, not to mention too, caffeine doesn't contain any energy. That's something I want to
You
disprove real quick. Caffeine is just stimulating your nervous system. There's no
uh,
energy in caffeine.
yeah,
The only thing that contains energy are carbohydrates,
fuel.
protein, and fat. Caffeine, there's no sort of like your body can take the caffeine and convert it into energy. It's doing is just stimulating your nervous system. So think about that. You don't want to run your car on an empty tank. It's the same thing with your body. The same principles apply. If you fuel your body, you're going to be able to go harder. You're going to be able to go further. You're just going to be able to see a lot better progress. So,
And that caffeine spiking your heart rate also. So if you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to go for the slow aerobic run," and you drink a bunch of caffeine, you slam a bunch of like an energy drink or a bunch of coffee, it's really hard to maintain that heart rate. I mean, I personally have noticed that like the amount of caffeine that I'm gonna drink before a lifting session is more than the amount of caffeine that I want to drink before I go out and go for a run.
yeah. And if you do want to use caffeine before a run, we do as well. I would just minimize the
Mhm.
amount. So maybe 100, 150 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah.
Start there, something small that just gives you some energy and you feel like, I'm really ready for this run, feel jazzed up, I'm ready to go. You don't want to get crazy with it because, like Alyssa mentioned, it's just going to be harder to maintain a lower heart rate. So,
Yeah. Just wanted to throw that out there.
yeah. So we talked about before the run, we've talked about how you should feel your body. Let's talk about during the run. That's going to lead us into our second tip is fueling your run, not just before, not just after, but also during the run.
Yeah.
That means hydration. That means maybe you need intra-workout nutrition as far as carbohydrates. You need water, you need electrolytes. Let's talk about all that, how we structure that, and how that really helps us perform better during our runs.
So, just giving some intake on what we do when we are hydrating during our runs is obviously before we go on the run, we want to make sure, again, we're not slamming a bunch of caffeine and we're hydrating pre run. You can't do all of your hydrating during the run because that's just not going to work. You want to be hydrated before you go on that run too. But during your run, especially in this heat, like we mentioned, we're running in the middle of the afternoon. So we're in the swing of summer, full blown heat, humidity here in Nebraska. And we are definitely running with a handheld water bottle and a scoop of electrolytes. So pre-run, depending on how long we're going for, we may even throw a scoop in our water bottles before we go for that run, and then another scoop while we're on that run. Our Fit Grind electrolytes has 500 milligrams of sodium, so it doesn't hurt to add in 2 scoops of that. So that pre and then that during, you're going to get 1,000 milligrams of sodium, just depending on how much you sweat, how long you're going for a run, and what time of the day it is too. Like that heat in the middle of the day is brutal, and I highly suggest you carry that water bottle with you during the run.
Yeah. Intra-workout nutrition is super important. Again, especially if you're looking to increase your performance. If you're really looking to test the limits of what is physically possible, intra-workout nutrition is going to be a game changer. So we always do a scoop of our Pink Starburst electrolytes before every single run. This is something that, again, you're going to be pushing out electrolytes as you run. And a lot of times people think that, just water is going to be enough to replenish their body. But if you're just replacing water after you've lost a ton of electrolytes, you're actually diluting the electrolytes in your blood. So think about this. If you push out a bunch of sweat, you go on a sweaty run, and then you just put water back in, now there's a lot more diluted blood that is lacking electrolytes. So that's
Mhm.
where potassium, magnesium, and sodium comes in. Those are the three things that are contained in our Pink Starburst electrolyte. The way we set it up was to have 500 milligrams of sodium. That way you could do multiple scoops at different points. A lot of brands, I think, they put in a crazy amount of sodium, maybe 1,000 milligrams. I think at that point, if you're doing 2 scoops of 1,000, that could become excessive.
Yep.
We wanted to set our electrolytes up to where we could do one during, we could do one before, we could do one after. And a lot of times that's what we do, especially on these sweatier, longer runs. We'll have a scoop before, we'll mix up a scoop and a handheld water bottle, like Alyssa mentioned. We'll sip on that throughout the run, especially if the run is going for more than an hour. And then we'll always do one after every single run. Again, just to replenish those electrolytes that are lost through our sweat. And especially if you're somebody that's sweating a lot, you need to be using electrolytes in your training. If you guys are interested in checking out our Pink Starburst electrolyte, I'll leave the link to these down in the comment section below. And I'll even leave you guys a discount code where you can save 50% on your first order. And just check them out. Support the brand. They taste freaking awesome. They're a Pink Starburst flavor. They are naturally sweetened, 0 grams of added sugar, and it only has potassium, magnesium, and sodium. It has everything you need and none of the bullshit that you don't. So go check it out if you guys would like to support the brand. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, so that checks out the hydration portion of our run, but getting into the fueling strategy as far as the carbs that we utilize during a run depends on the run. So if we're doing speed work, tempo work, shorter distances, we're not going to need to add in a carbohydrate source during those because those are typically shorter variations of runs. So if we're doing more of like on Sundays, we like to do our longer run. So like a 7-mile run. As we get into prep, we'll increase that mileage. But I think the furthest we've gone so far is like 7 miles.
Yeah,
So
recently, yeah.
yeah. So after 30 minutes, you're going to want to, and it doesn't have to be exactly 30 minutes, but typically at that 30-minute mark, I start like feeling like, okay, I really need something. And it's, 30 minutes or 3 miles, even somewhere around there. It's typically we'll grab some gummies or a gel. I prefer the gel. The gummies, I feel like I can't breathe while I'm chewing
You're
the
like
gummy.
chewing them while you're running and
It tastes really good.
you drop one, like, oh shit, there's my energy.
Yeah. So some sort of just quick, sugary carbohydrate source. Again, kind of similar to what you're doing before you go into the run. A simple carbohydrate that's going to get to the body quickly and that you're going to be able to utilize quickly.
Yeah, and this, like Alyssa mentioned, this really applies to those runs that are going to go for 45, 60, 75, 90 minutes. Like this really applies to that. If you're just going for a short little run, it's an aerobic run, it's not a very fast pace, you're just trying to get some miles in, get some good slow aerobic work in, you don't really need as much fuel. Your body can kind of utilize body fat. That's kind of the whole thing working aerobically, that with oxygen, your body can utilize body fat a little bit better. And that's why you can sustain that pace a lot longer. Whereas opposed to if you're running longer distances, your body's going to rely on carbohydrates stored in your muscle. So your body starts to break down that glycogen and it becomes that much more important to keep up the energy and the output to replace carbohydrates. So, 45, 60-minute plus runs, it is absolutely crucial to utilize carbohydrates in your workout. Now, the amount, again, is going to vary depending on the person, the individual, the size of the individual, the distance. Yeah. I would say every 30 minutes after that 45-minute mark, I would start using 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates every 15 to 20 minutes. If you're going for a 10-mile run, you might want to use 1, maybe 2 gels, depending on your intensity and, how advanced you are and how well you can really utilize carbohydrates. And, if you can tolerate that much carbohydrates in your run. If you're going for a 3-4 mile run, you probably don't need some sort of gel or chew or intra-workout carbohydrate, at least not to start. So it all applies to, again, the distance, the intensity, but utilizing those carbohydrates, your body's going to be able to take those right away. And you can literally feel this. Like if you're running, say you're going for a 10-mile run, and if we were going to do that, usually we'd probably hit a gel somewhere around like mile 4 or 5. And depending on the run, we might only do 1 gel. And that's something where you almost feel like life coming back to you when you're taking a gel or a chew or some sort of carbohydrate. You feel those carbs and you feel like, okay, I got a little bit more of a power boost. You feel your body taking those carbohydrates and literally turning it into energy. So it makes a huge difference. If I was to go for a 10-mile run and not use a gel or chews or any sort of carbs and time myself and really push myself and then go for a run where I did use them, those times would be drastically different. I can guarantee that I would be able to run significantly faster if I'm fueling inside the workout with some sort of gel or carbohydrate source. So it'll make a huge difference. Your electrolyte supplementation, your carbohydrate supplementation, if you're going for longer than 45 to 60 minutes, it's going to make a huge difference to your overall performance and being able to stick to it and just your long-term success.
Yeah, and keep in mind that if you're new to using gels, it's kind of tricky to find the one that doesn't upset your stomach, or, it's kind of abnormal to run while digesting something. So it's going to take some time for your body to get adapted to that and get used to that. So if you are someone who is, doing a race this year and you're not using any gels and you're like, oh, I'll use it when I do my race, I would suggest to start using those gels for those longer runs now so that you can get used to and your body can get used to using those and digesting while you're running. Cause like I said, that's kind of a foreign thing for your body to do because we typically don't eat and run at the same time. But there's different types of gels out there too, and you just have to experiment and find the ones that your stomach agrees with. And like I said, those chewy gummy things they're great. I could sit down and snack on those all day.
Boster.
But I personally can't chew and run and digest at the same time.
Yeah. If I was in a pinch, I would take the chews over nothing, but
Oh yeah.
I would definitely rather have a gel over a
Yeah.
chew any day. So
Agree.
that's going to kind of take us into our third tip. And this is something that we see so many people make the mistake of. And, even coming from a strength training background, we've always seen the importance of this. And I think we've always taken that concept and applied it to running as well. And our third tip around increasing your running performance is always going through a warm up. And I'm not just talking about bend over, touch your toes, stretch your hamstrings out, right arm across the chest, little head crack and go. I'm talking about a full dynamic warm up where you're getting your hips open, you're getting your legs loose, you're getting your ankles and the soft tissues around your ankle, you're getting it loose, you're getting it moving. Maybe you go for a slow jog to get your heart rate up. That way you don't get as high of a heart rate response when you first start that run. Going through a very thought out, methodical warm up is going to increase your performance. It's also just going to keep you healthy. It's going to make sure that, we're avoiding these overuse or just these little nagging type injuries that happen that can really derail your ability to stick with the program.
Like you mentioned too, it's a dynamic warm up. So a lot of times if you're doing those more static stretches, your muscles you're going in cold and then you're stretching them in a static state. It's not going to help warm up the muscles. So by doing movements like leg swings, ankle rolls, squats, moving the body is preparing it to go out and run and continuously move. So I think it's important to keep in mind that those dynamic movements are going to be more crucial than doing more of those static stretching movements. Those are more ideal towards the end of a run where you can sit in those stretches and kind of sink and relax into those stretches. But it's also important to, prevent from getting any injuries or long-term injury. If you have some nagging pains or, you have some previous injuries and you're feeling okay, but you know that those things come and go from time to time, I would really focus on, warming those muscles up, especially, like longer than you would the other muscles. So for me personally, for example, I have really tight hips and even my ankles sometimes can be tight. So really overdoing those stretches and adding in even more movements in the hips and in the ankles is really beneficial for me, especially.
Yeah, we could do a future video about our full warm up and we can take you through literally everything that we do. If you guys would be interested in that, let me know down in the comment section below. We could do a future video on that.
Yeah.
And also just make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss that and more hybrid training content. But I'm always opting for, like Alyssa mentioned, dynamic movements, things that are going to get my hips open, that are going to get my ankles loose, because yes, you're running and the soft tissue of your calves and your ankles is going to get stiff. It's going to get tight. And that's going to lead to a lot of issues, not only in the ankles and the calves, but also in the knees and in the hips over time. So
all that's connected.
It is all connected, and you're going to notice a huge difference and decrease in these little nagging injuries, pain. You're going to notice a huge increase in performance. So I'll do things like, let's mention like leg swings, even doing Romanian deadlifts or single leg Romanian deadlifts, just body weight, lunges, squats, doing different hopping motions, doing different ankle stretches, just making sure that my legs are warm, they're primed, they're ready to go. I'm going to have so much better performance when I do that versus if I just went in cold and I said, all right, start my watch and I'm just going to go for it. Like, yeah, things are going to start to hurt. My knees are going to start to hurt. My hips are going to hurt. And I think a lot of people can avoid a lot of these typical issues that they see, or even overuse injuries that you see from running, if you go through a proper warm-up first. It's so important. We can't stress it enough. If you can go through a great warm-up before your run, you're going to see so much better performance and just so much less injury and little nagging injuries that are super frustrating.
Yeah, the pavement too is never super even if you're going on a trail, especially, the ones here in Nebraska, we have some trails that, like the pavement starts to fall into the grass and like sometimes you'll roll your ankle into the grass and it's like if you don't properly warm up by doing some of those hopping motions from side to side or ankle rolls, then if you go into run and then you know fall into that crack, it's going to cause more damage than if you warm those muscles up and get that mobility going, I guess,
Yeah, and say
essentially.
you're in the middle of some sort of like endurance event prep, and you're like 8 weeks in, and you're like, sweet, I got like 4 to 6 weeks left in this prep. You go for a run, you didn't warm up, and you roll your ankle. Well, shoot, the likelihood of you being able to stick with the program and hit the PR that we were looking for, and all the work that you put in is going to be for nothing. So
Right.
it all ties together on the longevity piece. I think that's super important. You can't just expect to just show up, hit start on your watch and go for a run and expect to just have better performance. You have to fuel your body before the run. You have to fuel the body during the run. You have to make sure that you're going through a warm up. All these pieces that you can put together are what's really going to lead to that long-term success that you're really looking for. So I hope these tips helped you guys today understand these are 3 things that you can implement today in your
Mhm.
program that are going to make a huge difference in your overall ability to perform in your workouts, the progress that you make, and just have better performance and decrease of injury. So we hope you guys enjoyed these tips. What are some tips that you would throw on? If you have any tips that you're like, hey, I think this would be a good fourth, fifth, and sixth tip, let us know down in the comment section below. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode.